Hi everybody, it's Wednesday today, and it's Wednesday of Holy Week. Holy Week is the week that leads up to Easter. It begins with Palm Sunday, which was this past Sunday, when Jesus rode into Jerusalem. We call it the triumphal entry. He was on a donkey, people were shouting, Hosanna, people were waving palm branches, people were putting cloaks and garments on the road in front of him as he came into the city. And then throughout that week, things kind of changed, right? And by Friday, the city is calling out for Jesus to be crucified. He's put to death on Friday, and then he is raised again on Easter Sunday. So that's Holy Week. Observation of Holy Week goes back at least to the 300s, when the Christian church set it aside as a special week of observation to contemplate, to meditate what Jesus did during that week. And if we take the four gospel accounts, we can actually put together a pretty good timeline of what Jesus was up to during Holy Week. Now, we can start actually the night before Jesus' triumphal entry. The night before, Jesus was in the town of Bethany, which is just outside of Jerusalem to the east. Jesus is with his friends, and his feet are anointed at dinner by Mary. Now, a couple Sundays ago, if you were in church or if you tuned into our service, that was the passage for that Sunday. It was Jesus being at that dinner and his feet being anointed by Mary, who poured this dramatically expensive perfume on his feet. And Judas was, of course, a little upset about that, but Judas had some selfish motives. He wasn't quite as good as he presented himself when he was like, this could have been used for the poor. Why are you wasting it on Jesus? So that was the night before the triumphal entry. But actually, it's not like Jesus was in Bethany and then went to Jerusalem and then spent the whole week in Jerusalem. Jesus would go into Jerusalem during the day, and then he would go back out to Bethany each night to spend the night. So it was the same with Palm Sunday. Jesus goes into the city to much fanfare, people shouting, using words that associate Jesus with the Messiah, saying, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord, proclaiming words from Psalm 118. Jesus comes into the city, spends time in the temple, and then goes back out to Bethany to spend the night. Monday, Jesus comes back into the city again. As Jesus is coming into the city, he curses a fig tree, which is an interesting detail that the gospel writers put in the story. And then when Jesus gets into the city, he clears the temple. You remember the story, perhaps, of Jesus turning over the money changers' tables and sort of clearing out the temple and saying, God's house is supposed to be a house of prayer, but you've turned it into a place of greed and money and getting your hearts in the wrong places. It's supposed to be focused on worship and on God. So that happens on Monday. And then after spending some time in the temple and performing miracles and teaching, Jesus returns back out to Bethany. Then the next day, Tuesday, Jesus comes back into the city again. And as Jesus and his disciples are moving into the city of Jerusalem, the disciples notice that the fig tree that Jesus had cursed the day before is now withering. And Jesus gets into debates with religious leaders in the temple. The conflicts is building up even more. Of course, the religious leaders don't care very much for Jesus. And then at the end of Tuesday, Jesus gives what we call the Eschatological Discourse, or the Olivet Discourse, which would have happened on the Mount of Olives. It's in Matthew chapters 24, 25, and it's a lot of parables about the future, or prophecies about the future. It's in this discourse, for example, where Jesus talks about the Son of Man returning and separating the sheep and the goats, and saying to the sheep, I was hungry, you fed me, I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink, I was naked, you dressed me, I was in prison, you visited me. And they say, well, when did we ever do those things? And Jesus says, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. And he says the opposite thing to the goats. And they say, well, when were you ever hungry and we didn't feed you, etc.? And he says to them, when you did it not to the least of these, you did it not to me, right? So that would have happened on the Tuesday of Holy Week. And you can read in Matthew 24 and 25 this extended discourse. Matthew has 5 major discourses of Jesus, and that's the 5th and final one. Wednesday, today is Wednesday. In Holy Week, Wednesday is sometimes called Silent Wednesday. We think that Jesus probably stayed in Bethany with his disciples that day, just had a quiet day. Who knows what Jesus was doing throughout that day, as he knew that the hour of his betrayal and his death was drawing nearer and nearer. And in fact, it was on the evening of Wednesday that Judas would have snuck out and made a deal with the religious leaders to sell Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. So Jesus, of course, knows all this is going on, but he's spending a day with his disciples, keeping it to himself, maybe spending some time in prayer, just spending time enjoying fellowship with his disciples. But anyway, we sometimes call it Silent Wednesday. Then on Thursday, Jesus had his disciples go and prepare a place to celebrate the Passover together so that they could have the Passover meal, which we sometimes call the Last Supper. Very famously depicted in that Last Supper painting. And in the Gospel of John, there's just chapters of Jesus talking to his disciples at the Last Supper, all the things he says to them, his prayers for them. But anyway, that would have happened on Thursday as they celebrate the Passover after sundown, and leading to Jesus then leaving with some disciples, going to the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus prays that very famous prayer, Father, take this cup from me, but not my will, but yours be done. And then sometime after midnight, as you're going from Thursday into Friday, Judas shows up with a band of soldiers, and they take Jesus. He gets put on trial. This goes from, the dark wee morning hours of Friday into Friday morning. Jesus is put on trial. He comes before Pilate, gets shipped off to go before Herod. Herod sends him back to Pilate. Pilate eventually hands him over to the crowd. And of course, Jesus is put to death then on Friday, which we call Good Friday. And then, Saturday, a very silent day as well. Jesus is in the grave. His disciples think all their hopes and dreams have come smashing down to nothing. They think we put our hope in Jesus and the story is ended. He's dead and buried. And then, of course, on Easter Sunday, this coming Sunday, the resurrection. So that gives you a sense of the timeline of Holy Week, what happens each day. You have to kind of look at all 4 Gospels to put together the order of events. But it's a kind of a cool thing during Holy Week to fix our attention on what Jesus was doing, and in fact what he was doing each day of the week, not just skip from Palm Sunday to Good Friday, but think he's going into the city Monday, he's going into the city on Tuesday, he's spending time with his disciples on Wednesday in Bethany, and then on Thursday he goes in and celebrates the Passover with his disciples. I'm going to read the testimony of the guy who wrote the NIV application commentary on the Gospel of Matthew. He says, "Many years ago, I began a practice of what I call walking with Jesus through Holy Week. I try to visualize what Jesus was doing every day of that week, starting from the celebration with his disciples on the Saturday evening prior to Palm Sunday, all the way to the resurrection on Easter Sunday. I try to imagine what Jesus was doing at each hour of each day. Was he enjoying the last fellowship with his disciples, or was he alone, preparing for the experience of the cross? I try to put myself in his place, to feel what he was feeling. Was it poignant with joy when Mary anointed his feet, or painful rejection as Peter and the other disciples denied him? What was his feeling as Judas betrayed him? I like that. The author of this commentary is saying, let's fix our attention in a special way on Jesus during Holy Week and what Jesus was up to. One of the ways at our church that we have for you to be able to do that, if you are local in this community, is a Journey to the Cross walk through town. There's 12 stations. You can either use your mobile device, your phone. As you go from station to station, it has a reading and a prompt and usually an action that you can do at each station. Or you can start at the front of our church, and outside the front doors there are hard paper copies of all the prompts to get you from station to station, and each station has a map to the next station where you go. And you can do this with your family, you can do it with a friend, you can do it as yourself, and you kind of walk through the town a little bit, and it's a pretty cool experience to journey through 12 stations of Jesus' experiences on Holy Week, and especially leading up to the cross and the resurrection. And you start at the church, you make a circuit, and you end at the church, but it's all outdoors. Also, if you are local, if you're in the community, if you're part of our church family, remember that we have a Good Friday service on Friday morning. Please register online if you plan to attend. And then we have 2 Easter services. Again, we will need people to register. We really want people to register, so we just know who's coming. We have a handle on numbers. We can make sure that we do all that we need to do for people to take part in those services. But 2 services Easter morning. If you are local and you're able to attend, please register. But I just wanted to put this video together to talk a little bit about Holy Week, about what it is, about what Jesus was doing during Holy Week, and to remind us that we have these opportunities through the Journey to the Cross, the Good Friday service, and the Easter morning services to fix our attention even a little bit more deeply upon Holy Week and on Easter Sunday. So God bless you, and we'll see you again next time.